Next up is Fee Scott. She is from Glasgow and has evolved into a manufacturing geek and designer. She is the founder of MakeWorks, which is an open access platform for local production. The concept was born out of her frustration as a design student, and she's going to explain how and why and her future plans. Fee Scott.
Hi, so my name is Fee and I run MakeWorks. MakeWorks is an open access platform to source local manufacturing, and as Siobhan kindly just said, was born out of my own frustrations of not knowing where on earth do I get my things made if the workshops are shut. I was studying at the art school in Glasgow. Where's the nearest sawmill? How on earth do I even talk to a factory if I want to get something into production? Where's the nearest print studio? How do I get my hands on any material or machine? This is the website, which is possibly the best way to actually explain the project. And it started very much as a thing just in Glasgow, very quickly became Scotland-wide, and then now is starting to pop up in other cities around the world. The basic premise of the site really is, like, how do you find fabricators, suppliers, or workshop spaces where you live? The idea behind that really is, I guess, taking the idea of a 3D printer that absolutely anyone can access production, or to be honest, the thing that we've been doing as makers for a long, long time is actually providing people with the tools to make things for themselves. But actually the bit I was frustrated with was, that's great if you have it with one or two types of materials or one or two types of machines in your home, but actually how do you do that interacting with industry? And these machines, I guess things like CNC machines, it felt absurd to me that lots of places were buying new machines for their maker spaces so we can access CNC machines, whereas actually those things exist in every city, just at the end of the street, if you bother to knock on the factory door and actually ask how can we use these different types of production. The site really is built to be as simple as possible. It's a big database of all these different factories and local suppliers that you can go and work with. You can browse through the site, eventually find one that you think looks like you might want to work with them, and then you can contact them through a variety of straightforward methods like picking up the phone or writing them an email. We've just done some work with a group in Dubai who are setting up MakeWorks there, and actually I've had to add in WhatsApp because all the factories in Dubai like to communicate through WhatsApp. So it's quite, I love that way of which is the best way to actually contact sometimes quite traditional industries as well as new spaces. Again, the site, we collect a lot of data, and I think it's quite interesting. I think when people talk about data, it can feel very far away, or it's difficult to understand what that really means. For us, that means writing descriptions of factories that make sense to everybody, and then basic information like how many people work there, and the list of the machines they actually have on the factory floor that you can go and work with, as well as photography, because that makes everything much easier to understand. And really the project's about how do you integrate lots of these really exciting new ideas like local production, like bespoke fabrication. How do you make that a reality in an industry that kind of looks quite intimidating or can feel quite old-fashioned? And how do you work with these people, and how do you make that part of our design process or our making process? Most of my time is spent still in industrial estates, and I love them. So I think as a tip for if you need to find inspiration, is just go and have a look around an industrial estate, see what's there, knock on some doors and see if anyone will start making you work with you. And that's really what I did, to be honest, is starting my 4th year in my undergrad degree, I was literally just going around knocking on doors, working out who actually was in the city who I could work with, which then kind of gradually expanded into having a film team, making short films and asking as many questions as we possibly could in every factory, understanding how artists and designers and architects would go and work with them. This is Sandy. He runs a gasket factory. Gaskets are the bits you put between pipes to make sure there's no leaks, if you like. But actually, the second you walk into that factory, what we were seeing was these are huge sheets of rubber that are being pattern cut, essentially. Some of them by machine, some of them by hand, super skilled. And actually, you're just like, how does that work in fashion? How can we use that in sculpture? What are the different applications that are not being seen? And that's kind of, I guess, the exciting outcomes that can come from working with a more traditional industry. We did spend 3 months in a camper van traveling around Scotland. So we did 2 factories a day for 3 months, the 3 of us. And literally, I think a lot of the time we think, okay, we can find this stuff directly just through Google or DuckDuckGo or any kind of search engine. Quite often that information is so jargon heavy, and that's what I really found was a frustration. I felt quite intimidating, quite old-fashioned. So sometimes the most practical method of finding out this information was like out the back of the van being like, there's a sign. So these kind of signs, like the most valuable place to find this information. This was in about 2012, so it is changing a little bit now, but still, again, as a tip for any makers that are looking to work with any more industrial processes, is like take note of these signs and then look up the company names later on. Yeah, I do ask a lot of questions. Again, this is knitwear factories, and sometimes it's very straightforward questions, like actually understanding if you're wanting to make a new collection, do not go to a knitwear factory in the summer because they will be doing lots and lots and lots of production for their autumn-winter collection. But if you go in the autumn or winter, actually they'll be a bit kind of more free and available to chat to you. So there's lots of little things I guess we've learned along the way. Yeah, understanding again like quantity and scale, that kind of ongoing question, I think, in any industry. And sometimes it's understanding that frustration of some brilliant, brilliant weaving factories who will absolutely make a one-off for Vivienne Westwood, but probably wouldn't if you were just a new designer. So actually, how do you start those conversations and how do you build in those interactions? Again, like best tip I would ever suggest for anyone wanting to work with any sort of factory is just pick up the phone. It's the fastest way to get an answer. I know it can feel a little bit scary, but like it really, if anyone takes anything away from today and you want to work with manufacturers and industry, please just use your telephone. It's definitely more efficient than email. We also make short films. They're 90 seconds long. They're meant to be very practical, kind of quite informative, just so you get a feel of actually who you're going to go and work with in that factory. Based on the last makeshift, yeah, I think I was quoted as the Cilla Black of design and manufacturing. And that really is still at the heart of what we do, and it's really just trying to matchmake people with really interesting ideas and allowing them to really find production partners to work with. But I guess extending from the very professional side of it, actually what I'm really, really interested in is what does that look like when we turn the manufacturing system on its head, and instead of having mass production that we just simply consume, how do we change that so actually that the entire populations and citizens have control and a bit of ownership over the way things are made, how they're made and how they're repaired. A text that I always come back to, it's actually a 1970s economic text, Small is Beautiful by Schumacher, which again is totally fantastic. And really, I guess he talks a lot about what that economic system could look like and actually how manufacturing plays such a huge part in our economy. And actually, if we change the way manufacturing works, we can have a really big impact on that in a positive way, not just a negative suggestion. Everything we do is under Creative Commons, which has, I guess I did it in the beginning kind of subconsciously. Everything was just licensed that way. But now I've become a very big advocate of Creative Commons is amazing, and open access is a really, really important thing, especially for this sort of work. I guess I see the information about manufacturing as a public resource. People should have access to that content. So that's our information, as well as our photographs, our videos, also anything on our Giphy channel. If you're into manufacturing GIFs, please use them, adapt them, remake them. And I guess that really came, this is Tim Berners-Lee. He invented the World Wide Web, so the way you actually are able to use the internet. And when he invented this incredible technology, he really gave it away and said, this is for everybody, please use it. And if he hadn't done that and he'd kept it secret or put licenses on absolutely everything, then we wouldn't have the internet as we have it today. And I think that kind of core element of the web is really, really a key part of MakeWorks as well. And as Paola Antonelli, who's the lead design curator at MoMA in New York, says, the internet's one of the most radical social design experiments. And I really feel quite passionately about the fact that the open web and keeping the internet a healthy thing is something we should all kind of be quite mindful of and try and do as much as we can to make our projects work around that. Just another, I guess, thing I'm really inspired by, this is Aaron Swartz, who was really a leader in the open access movement. This is a documentary about him. It's on Netflix. It's great. Totally recommend you give that one a watch. But really, he talked about access to information. So information is like power. And actually, as anyone working in the digital realm, I think you do need to make that information free and open to other people so that we share that. And I guess that's what I see, this manufacturing information that I've been collecting and that's what other people are now helping me collect. That's why we do it under Creative Commons, is so that anyone can use it. And that therefore means that anyone can access making, repairing and manufacturing. So just a bit, I guess, that contrast of being very into the internet, but the reality of, actually, this is the computer in Johnson & Elgin. So just a bit of, I guess, yeah, that's the reality, actually, of sometimes the most complex, incredible machines still work. The digital designs come in on floppy disks, and then that's how they're translated. So I guess it's always been a bit of a challenge for us, is how do we work with the manufacturing industry that sometimes won't answer emails even, or you do have to pick up the phone. And that's quite an ongoing debate, but I think going to visit a place makes the world a difference, and actually those face-to-face connections are really important. And then I was just going to talk today a little bit actually about what we've started to do with the database itself, and why that's actually quite exciting, I hope, for the future of how we might make things. So we recently opened up our API, which means that anyone, again, can access the different databases that we have around manufacturing information. And we applied that to make an extension for both your Chrome and your Firefox browser, which we used on the IKEA website. Essentially what that means, or what it does, is it was a test case, if you like. But when you go on ikea.co.uk, you can look at any product. We take in, what kind of object it is, what it's made from, what materials it's using. Then actually what we're doing is bringing in lots of different data streams to say, actually, here's this object, but actually here's how you could have it made locally by somebody else, or here's where you could get it second hand, or here's where you could repair it, or actually we're putting in lots and lots and lots of different things. And are very open to people suggesting other ways that we could do that. I'd love to do it on Amazon or any electronics kind of website, but really just giving people, anyone that's using this extension, a bit more ownership over these mass-produced objects, and actually how do you do that in a local context. That's the site if you want to go and check it out. IKEA don't know about it, so that's really, I'm very happy if they do know about it. I think they might find it interesting, but we just put it out there and decided to see what would happen with it. And a bit about our other work. We've also run residencies, so I guess one side of it is great, everyone can have access to this data, but there is that practical sense of, well, how are we going to make sure that, or how do we encourage or give people the, the financial support to really go and collaborate and innovate with different factories. This was an artist who'd been, Florence had been making these little maquettes of, rugs. She normally does a lot of sculpture, but she'd been kind of constantly making these maquettes, and had presented this at Dundee Design Festival, and kind of through that, we placed her in a rug factory. She had never worked in textiles before, really, and we kind of took her in, and essentially just handed her a tufting gun and just said, go, experiment and see what happens. And again, those are the kind of things that I think really can start. So there's in the bigger picture sense, local production is brilliant for our environment and for changing the way we manufacture things on a large scale. But then in an artistic sense, and for makers, you have this really lovely spot where people can collaborate and come up with really new ways of actually making things and learning skills from people as well. So that was the rugs that is still a work in progress. We've also done things, this is Smythe Composites, who are a GRP glass reinforced plastics manufacturer up in Carnoustie. And they really make very practical, so the roof of one of the stations in Glasgow is all made by them, or they have the sides of swimming pools or the steps on the railway station, so very utilitarian, pretty boring products that you would see, maybe you wouldn't see as an exciting design. This is the kind of stuff that they typically would make. But then we placed some screen printers into their workshop and left them there for 6 months to experiment. And actually they came up with some brilliant, really exciting new uses of these designs and new ways to use that material. So here you see this is lots of different samples of ways they could actually use the material. And it was a really beautiful kind of relationship, I think, that went from the factory being quite skeptical, probably the right word, of, who is people coming into the factory, but then spending the time, and actually they ended up going to a trade show together and have this whole new kind of range of products they're working on. So there's kind of, both sides that it does really work when creatives and industry come together. There's also the kind of really lovely sense that we do list, so it's open workshop spaces and factories right through to individual makers that would make work for other people, or repair work for other people. And that's where it's really exciting, I think. People like Kevin actually gets loads of work out of the site, just making commissions for other artists, but it means that it can support the rest of his practice. So it does, and I guess the way the site has been very intentionally designed is that it doesn't show off or favour a large factory versus an individual maker. It's very much everyone's the same across the board, and the search results come up based on whether or not that's their main area of expertise or not. And then a bit of how we're branching out. Birmingham were the first kind of test case. They got in touch and just said, how do we do this in Birmingham? I said, I don't really know, but let's work it out. It's kind of the way that we've worked this project so far. Essentially it works where they've used the same platform as we have. It's kind of customized in various ways to fit in Birmingham. They go out and they take the photographs and they collect the same data, so that's all the same quality, and that's kind of quite universal across the site. But the bit that I've found really, really exciting as well is that that group have come up with a really beautiful program of getting artists into different workshops and kind of educational things around local production in their city. So there's tours of where the best metal factories are, or they have different classes, for example, how to go and make in glass but with a glass worker, those kind of things. The Derby Silk Mill are in the process of setting one up, and again, something they've done that's really lovely. They've run it as a young people's project, so that you can, they're teaching young people how to do photography, how to do film, how to go and engage with the local industry in their town. And that's a really, I guess, a lovely other aspect to it that I never would have thought of. But it's lovely when other people take that forward and really run with it and make it their own. This is Tom and Chloe, who are running Bristol. They're just great, there's nothing else. They're kind of work in progress. They've also got a hot air balloon maker in Bristol that I'm very excited to see actually come into the site. This is Cornwall, Devon. We actually had a 3-day workshop where we did taxonomy camp, which meant everyone who's running different regions got together and we all debated, what should be in this part of the database and how should we organize it. And again, it's really that collaborative approach that's become really a part of the organization, and it's been really exciting to learn from. Just the differences in Scotland. I was very used to working in lots of different textiles and how those should be organized versus understanding that in Birmingham, because of the automotive industry, there's so many different metal finishes and actually how those should be organized. So it's been a very, I guess the database itself is developing based on what people are finding the production is in their city, which, it's just quite exciting. This is the UAE. I was very skeptical, actually, if I'm honest, about working in Dubai. Just felt as a gay woman, I felt a bit conscious going into that country. But it was absolutely astounded. Like, this team are amazing and are doing an incredible job. And I'm actually very, very excited to be working with them. So they launch next week. And that's, they've got, I guess because they make so many hotels in that part of the world, they had lots and lots of small-scale bespoke production. So that's a really lovely, I guess, the way that designers can use that in that space. It's a very interesting project to work on. And that's me. Any questions? I'm around at the break. And thank you very much.